Greetings, all you patachs out there, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor. This is Undeclared Bajor, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
Kapla.
Kapla. Today we're going to recap, discuss, and rate Season 3, Episode 3, The House of Quark. Alternate title, A Tale of Two Wives.
Are there two wives?
Yeah, Quark has a wife and O'Brien has a wife.
Oh, yeah, I kind of forgot about the O'Brien bit. Good call, okay.
Our discussion will contain full spoilers for the series up through this episode. However, we will try to keep spoilers for later in the series to an appropriate minimum. We won't reveal anything too big, like the famous final line of the series, "Forget it, Jake, it's Bajor Town."
So derivative.
I know, I was like, that's way unoriginal. It ruined the whole series for me. This episode originally aired October 8th, 1994, and I know what you're wondering. What episode of The Five Mrs. Buchanans aired that week?
Wow, I was wondering that.
And the answer is Clyde and Vivian and Ed and Malice. The summary is, feeling that romance gone from her marriage to Ed, Vivian considers an affair with her cultured college boyfriend and gets caught by Mother Buchanan. What an exciting episode that was.
All right, if you say so.
We all remember that episode and that show existed.
Well, the day before this came out was Sideshow Bob Roberts on The Simpsons. So
True.
Classic Republican Party scenes.
I remember when Simpsons wasn't so woke and didn't do politics all the time.
With like the vampire Republican Party guy.
It was good. I watched that episode the other night because it's right after Itchy and Scratchy Land. So
right. I don't remember if Birch Barlow ever comes back. He seems like he should.
I think he does way later, when they start making fun of Fox News and stuff. But it was like after the golden age of The Simpsons. So this episode was written by Ronald D. Moore. Story by Tim Benko.
Yeah, Tim Benko apparently, according to the wiki, has a distinction of, let me read it again so I make sure that I get it right. I'm sorry, Tom Benko.
Oh yeah, Tom. It even says Tom. I just read it as Tim.
Tom Benko, credited for the story in this episode, is the only person to have written, directed, and edited Star Trek.
Nice. Yeah, I looked him up on IMDb and saw that he's mostly an editor with 2 Next Gen episodes directed. So, but I think he edited on all 3 Next Gen era shows. According to IMDb. So,
well, glad he kept busy.
I guess he was just like, hey, I have a great idea for a story, and he like told Ronald D. Moore or something. Ronald D. Moore was like, okay, I'll write that.
Yeah, why not?
And it was directed by Les Landau. Old Star Trek pro Les Landau.
More whining, less Landau. That's not.
There's no Councilman Les whining. Yeah, nobody's going to understand that joke. Or maybe all of our listeners are cool enough that they immediately get that joke. I should give them more credit. Okay, let's dive into the recap segment. I gotta think of a different word besides segment. Segment makes me think of, like, insects.
Okay, hold on. This is the portion of the show where we use a thesaurus.
Thesaurus. This is the thesaurus segment. To get away from segment.
Piece, part, bit, section, chunk, division, portion, slice, the slice of the show where we...
Ooh, slice. I also like chunk.
Tranche. That's a good one.
Tranche.
Module, fragment.
Ooh, like a shard.
Yeah, the shard of the episode. That's got very significant meaning to people out there listening to my the Sanderlanche podcast.
The Sanderlanche podcast? What's that?
It's a podcast about Brandon Sanderson books, and in the Brandon Sanderson Cosmere universe, shard is a loaded term.
Could I learn all about this by going and listening to that podcast?
I mean, potentially.
Isn't Brandon Sanderson the guy recently made famous by a Wired article?
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. I mean, after he had the highest grossing Kickstarter ever, the Wired article is really the thing that put him over the top.
I mean, I never heard of him until I saw him in Wired.
Apparently, I've never heard this noun, a moiety, Moiety, which apparently means like half, so one of two equal or nearly equal parts, which wouldn't fit in this, but that's a new word to me.
On the old Hello Internet podcast, which is sadly no longer around, they would always have corners.
We should figure out how many sections of the episode that we want, and then we can call it whatever number it is. So if it was 4, it'd be a quadrant. If it was 8, it'd be an octant.
We could have like a pentant or something.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll keep workshopping that. Anyway, in this episode, it's a good night indeed at Quark's, for Morn has sealed the deal with a hot lady and leads her off for a long night of hot, sweaty Morn sex.
Presumably, yeah.
After all, they call him Morn because the fun doesn't stop till the sun comes up.
All right.
In not such a good mood are Rom and Quark, for when Morn leaves, it's all over.
Says the fake rule of acquisition that Quark made up.
Yep. Recent tensions with the Dominion have driven away business, and now it's 2100 hours and Quark's only remaining customer is a lone drunken Klingon. And what's worse, the Klingon is out of money, and he wants credit. When Quark goes to confront him, the Klingon pulls a knife, tries to attack Quark, but then falls over and stabs himself to death. Later, as Bashir and Odo examine the body, Quark notices a fascinated crowd gathering round. He devises a plan, claimed to have killed the Klingon in a fight as a ruse to drive up business. Rom goes along only after Quark threatens to stop paying him. Good old Rom.
Yep.
What a spine he has. So Quark tells Odo an exciting story of hand-to-hand combat to the death. And Odo and Bashir look unconvinced. But they're like, whatever. Buzz, buzz, buzz. What's that buzzing? It's a bee story. O'Brien comes home from a long day off of O'Briening and finds Keiko poking at a little tree with a vacant expression on her face. Sensing something wrong, he asks, "What's up?" And she tells him she had to close the school because the last 2 Bajoran students left. All that's left is Jake and Nog.
Screw those kids.
Yeah, forget them. She's like, I'll just tutor them if they want, whatever.
Except she won't, because she's going to leave at the end of the episode. So.
Jake and Nog...
Now they will have no school.
Jake and Nog will have no education.
Yep.
O'Brien tries to comfort her, but she plays it off as no big deal. Business is booming at Quark's, much to Quark's delight. But Odo has to rain on his parade. Odo comes and explains that the dead Klingon, Kozak, was the head of a powerful family, and it might not be such a good idea to brag to everyone about killing him. But all this new respect is going to Quark's head. Besides, he figures if the family is mad, he can just offer them a bribe.
Yeah, because that'll work every time with Klingons. He knows them so well.
The famously bribable Klingons.
Apparently, there's a note in here that when he's telling the story and his audience is like, of how he slew the Klingon, there's an alien standing there who is later used in the Delta Quadrant. It's an Ankari.
Ooh.
So I guess...
how did he get all the way here?
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe the Ankari had hung out in the Gamma Quadrant at some point.
Sure.
He came through the wormhole.
He flew over, yeah. Although that brings up the age-old question of why didn't Voyager just go to the Bajoran wormhole? But maybe this species is very widespread.
Yeah, I mean, given what we know about them from this one episode of Voyager they were in, it doesn't actually sound like it, but who knows?
there's a million, they could have gotten into some sort of crazy, like, caretaker situation, or,
True.
they could be stranded here now. It's a big galaxy. Yeah, so anyway, Quark's plan goes out the window when he is accosted on the way home by Kozak's brother, Dagor. Dagor makes it very clear that Quark better stick to the honorable combat story, or the dishonor from an accidental death might make him need to take revenge to restore his family's honor. Oh yeah, whatever you say, says Quark. Meanwhile, Odo, probably watching the whole thing while shaped like a wall painting or something, enjoys the show. Because when Kozak's brother came on the station, Odo was like, I'm going to keep an eye on that guy.
I'm not sure that he actually is Kozak's brother, given what we learn later. I forget if it's established, because he's the head of a rival house. Hold on, let me see.
Okay.
Yeah, long-standing enemy with the House of Kozak. Hope to take over the House of Kozak. Yeah, the wiki doesn't say that he's actually related in any way.
Oh, okay. So, that whole being his brother was just a lie. Okay, that makes sense. But anyway, when a Klingon showed up, I would have been like, okay, let's keep an eye on this situation.
Yeah, probably.
Also, I'm kind of dubious about this story that if somebody dies in an accident, that's reason for revenge, but...
Yeah, I mean, given what we see later and what we hear from Grilka, it doesn't sound like that's true.
Yeah. He's playing Quark for a fool.
Well, Quark is kind of a fool, so...
Yeah, true. Back in the O'Brien house, the chief is putting the finishing touches on an elaborate fancy dinner he's making for Keiko. He wears the gray pants, black belt, blue shirt combo he was wearing in Tribunal. Apparently, this is his vacation outfit and his romantic night with the wife outfit.
Either way.
Sure. He probably doesn't have very many civilian clothes.
Yeah.
Although, I'm trying to remember, didn't they, like, rip those clothes off him or something in the...
Well, I assume that it's just like a style he replicates. That's
Sure,
the civilian clothes that he likes.
He's like, O'Brien outfit 1A or something like that.
Right.
So after a full night of hot, sweaty Chief O'Brien sex, I mean, they don't call him O'Brien for nothing, Miles heads off to work, thinking, as men are wont to think, that a good vigorous rogering was all his wife needed to get her back to her old cheery self. But as soon as he's got a foot out the door, that sad look comes back into her eyes, and she slouches back to the couch to poke at her little plant thing some more. Quark is counting his big stacks of latinum when a mysterious hooded figure enters his door. Hearing the figure speak with a woman's voice, Quark is initially intrigued, until she introduces herself as Grilka, Kozak's widow. Quark tries to honor her with the hand-to-hand combat story, but she quickly puts an end to that by pulling a knife on him, and then when Quark cowardly dives away from the fight, he is forced to come clean.
Yeah, he really dives out of there and like cowers down and like holds up a tray or whatever. Like, no.
I'm kind of impressed by his like dive over the bar though.
Yeah, no.
I could not have done that so spryly.
He's good at getting away from danger.
Yeah. This is the extent of his cowardice. Grilka jabs Quark with a hypo spray, and he wakes up in a living room on Kronos. So she's just like, psst. People should be like wearing neck guards, because they're always like getting jabbed by these hyper sprays in their necks.
That's true, but I'm pretty sure that like goes through cloth and stuff, so you'd need some sort of special hypo spray resistant thing.
Yeah. An old Klingon man explains the situation to Quark. They are in the former house of Kozak. Kozak has no male heirs, so his death has caused a conundrum. If the death was accidental, Grilka might be able to get special dispensation to take control of the house. But since Quark claimed it was an honorable death in combat, this allows Dagor to swoop in and take over instead. But Grilka has a plan. She makes Quark put on a robe, and they quickly rush through a ritual in Klingon. And when it's over, the old man explains that Quark and Grilka are now married.
Yep. Good for Quark.
Yeah. Finally tied that knot.
I mean, I don't know that he could do better, so...
Yeah, probably. Kira and Dax need to be in this episode, so we get a little scene of them having a staff meeting with Sisko. Then Chief O'Brien comes in and tells Sisko his plan to lift Keiko's spirits by converting an empty cargo bay into an arboretum.
No, but it has my favorite Kira moment where she doesn't want to leave.
Yeah.
It's like, Dax is like, oh, it sounds like they have like some personal stuff to discuss. We should go. And Kira's like, whatever, that must be some sort of human thing.
Yeah. Which, like, what's she wanting to do? Like, just listen?
Yeah.
I think they got this backwards. I think Kira would be the one who just immediately didn't care and left, and Dax would be the one trying to stay to get the hot gossip.
On Bajor, if you want to talk to somebody about your personal relationship struggles, then you do it with everyone else in the room.
Yeah.
It's the only way that it's allowed.
Yep. It's like, what a weird human custom. Privacy. So, yeah. He asks if he can use a cargo bay for an arboretum. Sisko gladly gives him Bay 21. And this is the source of the Let Me Know YouTube channel intro. Finally.
Oh, yeah, I remember we talked about that before.
Yep. When Sisko's like, if there's anything you need, just let me know.
See, I'm kind of disappointed that we're not getting this arboretum.
Yeah, it sounds like cool. I would have loved to see that. You could put all kinds of cool scenes in that arboretum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well. On Kronos, Dagor makes his case before Gowron that since Kozak died in honorable combat, he can now claim the house. Not so fast, says Grilka, making a dramatic entrance with Quark. Since the combat was honorable, Quark can now be invited to take Kozak's wife and his house. So that is what she has done.
Yep. Oh, but you do remind me. 2 fun facts here.
Okay.
First off, this is the only episode of Deep Space Nine featuring scenes set on Kronos. The planet would not be depicted again on screen until Broken Bow, the pilot episode of Enterprise.
Oh, wow. I'm actually surprised to learn that. I could have sworn there would be more scenes, but...
See, there was one episode specifically that I was like, I'm pretty sure that there... And then I had to look it up, and it was like, nope, that was a different planet, just also in the Klingon Empire.
Wow. And we got Gowron. Gowron is just kind of like unceremoniously thrown in the episode. Like...
Yep, that's actually the other fun fact. The only appearance of Gowron that does not also feature Worf. And there's a fun little bit in here where Ira Bear is like, I mean, it wasn't like a conscious decision to have Gowron make the transition from the Next Generation to DS9. It was just like, you feel like all of the Star Trek universe is fair game because it's part of the same franchise. So
yeah.
He says, any element that I want to borrow legitimately seems fine. And then he adds the joke, I think that Ron and Gowron have a secret pact. They've never been seen together. I think Ron might be Gowron. I assume he's talking about Ron Moore. I don't know who else he'd be talking about.
Huh. Interesting.
Like, I thought he was joking about the actor at first, but the actor's name is Robert O'Reilly, so I was like, oh, okay, well.
Huh. I just think the obvious thing to do would have been to be like, because they just cut to the scene and Gowron's just there.
Yep.
It's like the obvious thing to do would have been like, all rise for the High Chancellor, Gowron. And then Gowron walks in and all the Star Trek fans are like, hey, Gowron's here. But then I was just watching, I was like, hey, wait, it's Gowron. Anyway, what were we even talking about?
The scene with Gowron.
Oh, yeah. So seeing that this is at heart a property dispute, Quark immediately recognizes this is his wheelhouse and begins to try opening negotiations, but sadly he's immediately shut down. Gowron rules that the House of Kozak is now the House of Quark?
That is a great joke. Where it's like, Quark. The House of Quark. It's Quark.
The House of Quark. He like rolls his eyes. When Quark and Grilka get home, Quark's like, what do we do now? And then Grilka's like, I got nothing. After some prodding, Grilka explains that Kozak gambled away most of their fortune, and now they are deep in debt to Dagor. Okay, let me check those financial records, says Quark, which Grilka is initially opposed to, but she relents.
Klingons don't do finance.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder what's going on in this whole empire. Like, Ferengi could come in here and buy up the whole thing, probably.
Yeah. I think Quark needs to tip off the Grand Nagus about this situation, because these guys are not...
You would think that maybe like each house would have like the one guy who grew up and just loved math and hated fighting, and so he's like not considered an honorable warrior, but every house acknowledges that you need the one guy to take care of your finances.
Yeah, I mean, that probably does exist, but like... it's a very not honorable profession. So
Right.
the Gowrons of the world don't want to get their hands dirty with it. In the Replomat, Bashir notices O'Brien planning out the Arboretum, and O'Brien asks him his opinion. Bashir thinks it's only a temporary solution, since it's only a hobby. To which I say, why don't you just make it like a professional arboretum, and then it's her job to take care of it, or something like that. Problem solved.
Like, active research in plant cultivation happening here. It could be a thing.
And he was also like, I don't agree with his logic at all, because he was like, would you like to spend all your time like tinkering with stuff? I was like, isn't that kind of every engineer's dream, to like retire with like their big workshop of their own and work on their own little projects all day long?
I don't know. I'm not an engineer.
I don't know. It seems like it would be, but
I really don't know. I guess it may even be more a matter of like, what area of botany does she specialize in? Because I could see very different opinions from like somebody who's like a specialist in this like cutting edge, examining brand new botanical samples versus like cultivation, which is a different sort of thing, versus like research into genetics or whatever, which is going to be a whole different thing again. And so I don't know. It depends on what she likes to do.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Also, why is he planning at the Arboretum? Shouldn't that be like her thing? Like, he's like, we're turning this into an Arboretum. You can set it up however you want. Instead, he's like designing it for her before telling her about it.
Yeah, he's I feel like the whole time he's like kind of taking a little too much into his own hands, but it's just O'Brien's style, I guess.
Yeah, it's actually, that's a really good point, because he never once consults her on like, hey, what do you want to do? Let's find something that you can that you would want to do that we can work out. Even to the end of the episode, he's like, hey, I found this opportunity for you. You should take it.
Yeah. That's true. This whole thing would be a lot simpler if he was like, maybe we should look for you a job or something like that. Like, I'll be supportive. You don't have to abide by your promise to stick around all the time. Like, if you want to find a job on your own somewhere else, like, that's cool with me or whatever. And so he's like, I found you this one job. Do it.
On Bajor, which is 3 hours away.
In
contrast to the other episodes where it was like 2 hours or 5 hours away. Although there's a note in here where someone wanted to point out that's not inconsistent, because DS9 is stationary near the wormhole, whereas Bajor, being a planet, revolves around the sun, moving nearer and further from DS9.
Ah, good point. Good point. Yeah, take that, like, nitpickers.
That's if the wormhole is actually stationary and not in orbit of something or other.
Well, I mean, even if it was, it would be in a different orbit of...
That's true. That's a good point.
Bajor, so... Unless it's in some weird, like... yes, I am aware there is such a thing as a Lagrange point. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm glad you preempted all of those comments that we were going to
I know we were going to get 100 comments about that. Okay.
Allison Fordyce is out here like, you're forgetting the Lagrange point.
Okay. But that's real science. This is science fiction.
The best kind of science.
Yeah. So, back to forensic accounting files, Kronos.
Yep.
Quark has uncovered Dagor's shady financial maneuverings. After making an ill-advised pass at Grilka, the two decide to bring their findings to Gowron and the Council.
Dude, I love that scene. It's like, that is why I will give you the opportunity to take your hand off of my knee.
Yeah. Without me breaking every bone in your body.
Yeah. And apparently they had a great time doing that scene, because she's quoted in here saying the entire crew kept cracking up every time we did a take.
It was a pretty good delivery. But this turns out to be a grave miscalculation, as Klingons turn out to be not very receptive to evidence in the form of spreadsheets and ledgers.
Yeah, I mean, she's right that they were like, this is dishonorable if true. But she doesn't... I'm wondering if she didn't realize where this would go because it's extremely obvious, or if she did realize and was just like, well, I'll let him shoot his shot, I guess. It's just...
Well, I mean, it might have helped if, like, they practiced the presentation first. Because it's
Well,
like,
yeah. He's like, look in this column, and now open this other file with this extremely long file name.
it's like, dude, you need to discover PowerPoint.
Yep, he needed a presentation with some easily like recognizable pie charts or whatever. Not that it matters, because no matter what he showed them, they would be like, okay, yes, fine. What do you say, Dagor? And he'd be like, he lies, and I will challenge him to prove it.
Well, but if they understood his evidence better, it might not be as easy to just deny it.
I don't know.
But,
in a society where you can take any accusation and turn it around and be like, we will have a battle to prove the truth of this situation,
true.
Then I don't know that any amount of evidence is going to be sufficient to avoid that.
Yeah. So yeah, Dagor used this opportunity to challenge Quark to a duel, and also he announces that he has new evidence that Kozak's death was an accident, and thus Quark's claim to the house is null and void. His witness, Rom. Which is like, oh, come on, Rom.
Well, also, I don't understand how this works in his favor. His whole point was it couldn't be an accident or else XYZ. Now, because she found another way out, he's like, well, now it was an accident.
Right.
And there's no evidence that Grilka would have known the truth of accident or no accident. So wouldn't we be back where we started from? Maybe the fact that he's now married into the situation changes the dynamics of it. I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, I do have that written down, because it was like, someone should be like, great, then it was an unforeseen circumstance, and we can grant special dispensation to Grilka to inherit the house.
Maybe now that she's remarried, that it's like they can't get away with that.
But wouldn't her marriage be null and void if she didn't have that right to invite him to come marry him or whatever?
Well, I mean, she can't invite him to like take control of the house, but that doesn't mean she can't marry him. I wouldn't think that.
We need to get a Klingon lawyer in here to explain the situation.
See, there's another profession that they probably have no respect for.
Right. But yeah, so Quark and Rom later that night scheme to escape, but Grilka catches them and lays a guilt trip on Quark. And then they decide to leave anyway. We have this great scene where like Quark projects his own like guilt onto Rom. He's like, oh, you didn't let that get to you, did you? And Rom's like, no.
I do like that Quark gets his moment of it's like sticks and stones. Like, look, you care about all this honor shit? I really don't.
Yeah.
So I'm out.
You need to appreciate the cultural gap here. Back in the audience chamber, Dagor tries to claim the duel a forfeit. But at the last minute, Quark and Rom show up. The duel begins, but Quark just throws his sword away, and then he makes a speech that obviously Dagor would win the fight. So there's no honor in the duel no matter what. So you may as well just execute him. And the Dagor is like, fine with me, and raises his sword to kill Quark, but Gowron interrupts. Because if Dagor could do something so dishonorable as execute Quark, then all the accusations against him must be true. And then he gives Dagor the greatest Klingon insult, the cross-arm back turn.
Yep, we've seen that one before.
It's like, and everybody turns their back, except for like two big strong guys who like grab him and drag him out.
Yep. I guess those guys weren't council members. It doesn't matter if they turn their back. It's not official.
Practically somebody has to get him out of there so that they can turn back around.
Like, so that he doesn't like stab all the guys when they're turned around.
That too. But Gowron's like, yeah, this is a pretty weird circumstance, and he grants special dispensation and gives the house to Grilka, so it is now, I guess, the house of Grilka. Grilka thanks Quark and asks what he wants, and Quark asks only for a divorce, which Grilka immediately grants.
I 100% believe Klingon divorces are this simple.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then we wrap up in Quark's bar, where O'Brien tells Keiko that he's heard about a survey mission on Bajor in the mountains or whatever, and they need a botanist. And then she's like, okay, well, sounds good, I guess.
And she can take their daughter.
Yeah, exactly. Get that.
So that's good.
Get that little brat out of my hair. Go take her into the mountains. It'll probably be a fun, like, adventure for little Molly, so she'll probably be like, wow, the Bajoran Mountains. And then we end off with Rom expressing his admiration for Quark's performance. Quark sulks that everybody's tired of hearing that story, but Rom wants to hear it again, so Quark happily begins telling the story. The end.
Yeah. Quark, it's a classic Quark episode.
Yep. Not a bad Quark episode, I'd say. Yeah, I like the scene where Quark is looking at the ledgers and stuff. He's like, very clever, very clever. Like, I have a feeling that none of this stuff would actually be illegal on Ferenginar.
Right? Yeah, no, like, it's like he's just been using intelligent, like, maneuvering of finances, which I don't even know if that's illegal on Kronos. It's just like, we have no respect for that. We don't want you on the, like, High Council if that's the kind of shit you get up to.
Well, I mean, what is the law on Kronos? It just seems to be like honor good, dishonor bad.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so I was talking about forensic accounting.
Mm-hmm.
It made me think of those, this is just a random thought, but it made me think of those forensic accounting novels, those famously bad forensic accounting novels written by a forensic accountant.
Yeah, sure.
Just with all
I believe you.
The crazy title. What are those? Apparently there's actually quite a lot of forensic accounting novels. Like, legit looking ones.
It's a popular subgenre, I guess. You just didn't realize. So, while we've been talking, I was looking, because there's a quote in here about from the lady who played Grilka, saying that she really loves Joe Ruskin, the guy who plays, like, her assistant or, like, servant or whatever.
Sure.
And so she's like, I'm a huge fan of his, so I got a kick out of him playing my servant in this. So I had to go out and look him up. And this seems like one of those guys who he's been doing, like, one-off parts on TV shows and stuff since the 50s.
Nice.
When his first appearance was Raccoon Lodge member on The Honeymooners. But he's been in many, many things, most of which I haven't heard of. But, you know, every once in a while, this guy, oh yeah, he was in this Magnificent Seven episode. He's in this episode of the original Star Trek, The Twilight Zone, The Untouchables TV show, The Outer Limits, Mr. Ed. He played Nobleman in Mr. Ed. I didn't know there were any noblemen in Mr. Ed, but whatever.
I'm sure there was an episode where, like, a snooty European nobleman came to visit Mr. Ed, maybe, or something like that.
Get Smart. I love that show. In the TV show Wild Wild West, he was in 2 episodes as 2 different people, one of which was called Viper Black. So that's a cool name.
I would totally sign up for that.
So he was in the original Star Trek series as Galt. There's Hogan's Heroes, Mission Impossible. I want to see what other Star Treks he's done, since we see him in this one too. The Bionic Woman, Wonder Woman, Captain America TV show, The Munsters Revenge TV movie. I'd never heard of that, but all right. Yeah. Knight Rider as Bubba. Okay.
Dun dun dun.
The Smurfs as additional voices. DuckTales as additional voices. The Adventures of Don Quixote and Sancho Panda.
Sancho Panda?
Yep. It doesn't look like he was in Next Generation, but he was in Deep Space Nine in 3 different episodes.
Nice. As 3 different people, I assume.
Yeah, there's 2 named in here. One is Tumek and one is Informant. So maybe he played one of those twice. Oh, does this? I don't know. I feel like his character in this episode might show up again. In Star Trek Insurrection as Sona Officer Number 3. In Star Trek Voyager as Vulcan Master.
Nice.
Star Trek Hidden Evil, the video game. Star Trek Away Team video game. I think I may have played that one. Star Trek Enterprise as Suliban Doctor. So he's done plenty of Star Trek. The Scorpion King as Tribal Leader. 3 episodes of Alias.
As 3 different people?
It says as Elaine Christoph.
Hmm.
So I assume same. The movie Smokin' Aces, an episode of Bones, and then his final appearance, The Forsaken Westerns TV series.
Quite a career.
Yep.
Yeah, I finally found this guy, Dwight David Thrash, and his Forensic Certified Public Accountant series, which starts with the Forensic Certified Public Accountant and the Cremated 64 Squares Financial Statements.
Sounds like a page turner.
Which has a 1.69 on Goodreads.
That's not good.
77 1-star reviews.
Ouch.
And then there's a very long review that begins, I rarely swear in real life. It feels uncomfortable, and I virtually never get unself-conscious enough to let a curse slip. I occasionally put a swear word into one of my book reviews because sometimes it's simply le mot juste. I am going to swear a lot in this review. Likely with some light blasphemy mixed in.
Le mot juste. It's very important.
And then I like there's one that says there's a 5-star review that says the Iliad of terrible books. Every page is so consistently awful, it's hard to imagine anything ever outdoing it. Truly a milestone of literature. Very funny. I'll put a link to that Goodreads page so that people can get a good laugh out of that. Anyway, Star Trek Deep Space Nine. That's the show we're talking about.
This episode was the only episode of Star Trek scored by Richard Bellis. I don't know who he is, but he has an interesting note in here where he's like, so this day that we were recording a piece for this, it sounds like it may have been when Dagor exits the Great Hall. He says, John Williams had a date in town, and he was using 8 French horns. And James Horner had a date, and he was using 6 French horns. And I was using 4, and they were excellent. So as testimony to the depth of quality musicians in LA, that many horn players were working, and I was not the highest man on the totem pole, but had an excellent section.
Huh. So the point is that there were enough French horn players to go around that even though he got the last pick of the French horn players, they were still really good.
Yep.
All right. Good to know. I think that might indicate an oversaturation in the French horn
in the French horn market in LA.
Job market, but so I'm going to do it, Mom and Dad. I'm going to move to LA and become a French horn player.
Yeah. Not the first place you might think of going, but then again, I don't know. I never tried to be a professional musician. Maybe that's where they go.
Maybe. I don't know. I know they got that big fancy Disney concert hall.
It's true. Another fun fact about this episode.
Okay.
Not Richard, sorry. I was reading stuff about Rick Berman. During the filming of this episode, Dr. Stephen Hawking visited the set.
Ooh, nice.
And Armin Shimmerman says it's like one of the high points of his life was meeting Stephen Hawking, and he got a photo with him. And
cool.
He says, I remember I turned and the smoke seemed to part, and there was Dr. Stephen Hawking visiting the set with Rick Berman.
Nice. I mean, Stephen Hawking, obviously a Star Trek actor himself.
Yep, it's true.
Whatever that episode was.
Yeah, what episode was that where Data's playing poker with famous thinkers?
I don't remember.
Okay, hold on.
It wasn't really related to the main plot of the episode.
Descent.
Okay.
Which, yeah, that's not related to the main plot of that episode. That's got a whole other bunch of stuff happening.
It was just like, we need to write in an excuse for Stephen Hawking to be in this episode.
But my favorite bit in the notes is Mary Kay Adams, who plays Grilka, is like, look, I gotta tell you this story. The first time that I'm sitting there in that chair and they're putting all the Klingon makeup on me, and Armin Shimmerman comes over, before we were even on camera together, he's like, look, this is going to be a very long day. And as the day goes on, you're going to feel more and more disoriented because of all the stuff they're going to be putting on you. Happens to everyone. It happens to me. So if there's ever a moment when you're just really unsure, or if you don't know what's going on, then pull me aside and we'll work through it. And she was like, I was so touched by his kindness and honesty, because being a guest star can be kind of hard. A lot of times you walk into the middle of a well-oiled machine and they don't know you and they don't really want to know you. And they're like, here, catch up.
Mm-hmm.
And so that moment meant the world to me.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Good old Armin Shimmerman. I'm sure he knows the pain all too well of being under like 50 pounds of makeup.
Yeah.
And then having to like work all day. Yeah, I got nothing. I mean, we can jump right into ratings if you want.
Yeah, sure. What do you want to rate this one?
I'd give this one a pretty solid Commander. It was, really entertaining. Like good Quark stuff, good Klingon stuff. It's a brilliant idea, like a fun comedy of errors, throwing Quark into like this Klingon house dispute or whatever, and then having him use, or at least attempt to use, a Ferengi solution to solve everything.
Yeah.
Pretty good. I felt it was a little bit watered down by the O'Brien and Keiko plot, but it was a nice plot and concept, at least. I think the fact that O'Brien is like going around trying to solve all Keiko's problems for her is a little weird, but
yeah,
at least it's like, things are getting tough. Keiko's being affected. O'Brien realizes that and wants to help her out. It was nice enough. What do you think? How would you rate the episode?
So I like the Quark stuff.
Uh,
I agree that I feel like so far in the show, bringing Klingons in to an episode it has really just like is the trick to making
right.
the episode better.
It's always like kind of a nice treat.
Yeah, and so I agree with you. I like that they put Quark in a weird situation, and he tries his best to like use his area of expertise to resolve it, and it actually seems like it might work for a minute until it doesn't.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's all good. I have mixed feelings about the B story. It's not the strongest B story in that it doesn't connect to the A story in any way.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. But at the same time, I'm kind of grateful that they decided to address the fact that Keiko's never around.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they at least decided to address that. They're like, look, we're not going to have her around any more than we have been. Let's give a reason for it.
Sure. It's always weird on TV shows when it's like we don't see a character for a while, and then the other characters have to keep making up excuses why that person isn't around.
Yeah.
It's like they're still on their vacation in Japan or whatever.
But anyway, so all that to say that I don't mind the B story as much because I feel like it accomplishes at least a couple of things, even if it's kind of weirdly placed. So I guess I'll also give it like a solid commander.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it hits that target quite nicely. Keiko stuff is always hit or miss because it's, it's like they never know what to do with Keiko. So I guess what they did with Keiko was like, let's buy ourselves some time without Keiko for a while. And they like brushed their hands. They're like, that'll take care of the Keiko situation.
And yet they give her very little agency in the process.
Yeah, obviously what should have happened was she should have found the job on Bajor and then come to O'Brien and been like, I know I said I wouldn't leave you, but like I'm going crazy. Can I go take this job? And then O'Brien would have been like, of course. But,
That might have made for an interesting episode where like Keiko, like something weird's going on with Keiko. She's upset and then it turns out like she got this information and maybe even interviewed for this job, but she was hiding it because like there could have been interesting stuff in there.
Yeah. I feel like they probably didn't spend too much time thinking about this B plot, but
yeah, probably not.
There's like, oh shoot, the Quark, which I don't understand why we can't have like a full hour of Quark on Kronos, because I would have been all for it, but I guess they just couldn't come up with enough scenes or whatever. Or maybe they felt they really had to get rid of Keiko, and they're like, okay, we got to wedge in this Keiko stuff. Either way.
We got Quark stealing from Shakespeare and saying that it's Ferengi in origin, just like the Klingons do.
Right. I think I think Shakespeare is some kind of like universal being who like somehow had avatars on every single planet all at once or something like that.
Yeah.
That would have been a cool Star Trek episode. The mini Shakespeare.
That would be. Yeah.
Because it's like they go to Romulus. It's like the great Romulan playwright William Shakespeare. It's like, wait, you have a Shakespeare too?
Hey, they can still do that. There's still Star Treks going on out there.
True. True.
I know that you producers are listening to this extremely popular show. So if you want to use the idea, I will gladly write that script for you. Just let me know.
Yeah. Totally. We won't sue. We promise. Oh. We got to do why didn't you remind me to do the title review?
Oh, yeah, title review. House of Quark. Oh, yeah, and I kept thinking about it because as I was scrolling up and down, because there's a note in here that the original working title was Fight to the Death, which
that's lame.
House of Quark is much better title.
House of Quark, I'm going to say, is a spot-on title.
Oh, no, 100%.
I give that title a captain.
You hear that title and you know what the episode is.
And I was actually thinking about, while I was editing the previous two episodes, The Search is actually kind of a good title, too. Because it was, it's one of those kind of like double meaning ones where they were searching for the Dominion. But really, Odo's search for his people came to an end or whatever. So, I don't know. I thought that was a not bad title.
No, yeah, the search is fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily stand out to me that much. You say the search part 1 and 2, and I'm like, okay, no, I think I know which one we're talking about.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's true. It does have the problem. It's a little vague, so if someone said the search, you might have a little trouble being like, which one's the search?
Yeah.
It's like the alternate. It's like, what's the alternate?
But yeah, I agree. It's not like inappropriate for the episode.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, the second episode in the search part 1 and 2 doesn't really have much to do with searching in any way.
Yeah. I mean, Kira was searching for the thing that was blocking her radio, but...
That's true. And she found a door.
Yeah. So, what? A door? This is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. But I think they've definitely upped their title game since, definitely season 1. Season 2
Yeah.
had some definitely weird ones, but...
I'll give you that. Title game has increased.
Yep. Okay, so I think we can wrap it up there.
Okay.
I think I have a lot of crap I'm going to have to edit out of that. But, any final thoughts?
No, I'm good.
Okay, well, that does it for us today. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. As always, check out the description where you may find links to interesting things. Or you may find nothing. I'm Fletcher, about to say goodbye to Data.
Kapla.
Kapla.
It works either way.
Yep. It's like aloha.
It's a street aloha.
Until next time, don't forget to kiss the Negus stick.